Well, hello again, everybody. Here is the casting tree that I showed you in my last video. Obviously, I cut off several of the fittings so that I could machine them. And also, as I mentioned in the last video, I had looked at Tubal Cain, Mr. Pete 333, or excuse me, Mr. Pete 222. Looked at some of his videos about how he machined these fittings. Now, he was drilling and tapping them, so his were a little bit more elaborate. But somebody made a comment in his videos about holding them and basically just suggested crushing the fittings in the vise, not crushing them, but in some soft wood. So as you can see, that's what I did here. You can see the little indentations left by the various fittings. I blocked up the wood and in the vise, and I used this little piece of hollow brass below them just as a drilling stop, basically, to protect the drill bits. So that worked out well. If you have a more elaborate need for machining, you probably want to make something like this. If you saw the videos that I did about making the globe valves, these are PM Research globe valves. I made these aluminum fittings that screw together like clamshells around the globe valves, and it gives you a nice squarish rectangular block to put in your vise, and it really aids in machining because there's a lot of different operations that are involved. That's the one for the 1/4 inch. Here's one for the 5/16 inch globe valves. It's empty, obviously, but I use this. This is the actual one I used in making a lot of those videos. So there we go for the elaborate clamping and this not so elaborate clamping. Just here are some of the things I used. A little wiggler for the center finder, center drill, 1/8 inch drill bit, and a 3/16 inch end mill to make the hole for the 3/16 inch tubing. And a little lesson learned, this is the first one I machined, and this will go into the scrap bin. As you can see, my holes were not very well centered. This one's all buggered up on that side. But I try to get real fancy and mark them out and center punch them and put them in the vise and use the wiggler. It turned out that it was a lot more accurate just to use this long center drill in the drill and then eyeball the centering back and forth of the various fittings. So I would center drill them with the 1/8 inch drill, and then without moving them, I'd go ahead and use the 3/16 inch end mill. I'd go down about 150 thousandths. I have no idea if that will be good for the silver soldering. You can see the little shoulder that's formed inside there. I think it will. There we go. There's the little rim. And I think that's going to be a nice setup for doing the silver soldering of the copper tubing. So these are the 90-degree fittings that will go on top of the fittings that I made previously. I'll use little pieces of 3/16 inch tubing and silver solder those in. And this is the T that will get connected, and it'll have a piece coming out of the top of it that will go on to the brake valve itself. So that's the little quick update, and I hope that's helpful. These things were a lot of fun to make. They are small and fiddly, and I don't know if the using the wood block is the absolute best way to do it. You're certainly welcome to figure out whatever your own best way, but not having to drill and tap the things, I would say the wood block worked out well for me. Only other caution I would say in using these things, obviously all the typical machining cautions, but the chips do fly with these things, these little castings, so make sure you have your safety equipment on, your safety goggles, absolutely, to protect your eyes as you're doing the machining. And that's about all there is tonight, and thanks for watching. I'll keep you posted.